Hi, this is Koiro with yet another installment in my Christmas calendar series. And some people has actually asked me if I only have lunchable or collegeable computers from back in the day. Of course, obviously forgetting that I started out with some IBM XTs. But the truth is that I mostly have carriageable computers, but I do have some stationary computers as well. And at some time in my life, this was a space constraint that made me do this decision that I couldn't keep everything that I had of old boxed computers. So this time we will be looking into something that is a bit more boxy and a stationary computer. And I do have another specimen here that I have never tried, I never opened, but I'm very familiar with the PC itself. And it's this box here. And this is a Commodore computer. It's a PC, and it's one of the original line that was made by Commodore themselves, and it was made through their own specifications and their own, not just specification, but they did the whole motherboard design in-house, and also some of the case designs, and they outsourced some of the production, but the assembly of this was probably all done in Germany. And I will move the camera so we can get a close-up of this. Yes, and this is the Commodore PC20 III. And this was the last installment in all of these series. This was the third model. And this has the original 5.25-inch floppy drive. And the machine has not been washed or anything since I got it. So we will take a trip around the sides and look at it closer. But the front is dirty, it's a bit yellowed, but otherwise it looks in good condition. There are some signs of glue or something here on the plastic. I'm not sure what that is. I have the same on this side here. And this is the original screws, and that's a good sign. And this machine has been stored on this edge. That's why the paint is all scratched and stuff here, and it's of course very dirty. We can move it and take this side. And on this side of the PC20 model you have this reset button, and you have the keyboard connector on this side. And on this side you also have the original screws, and some less scratching than on the other side. On the back you do have the original power cable. I can loosen that for a short while. And this machine looks to be all original. The warranty seal is broken. I can just see that it's broken here, but also here the original screws are in place. There is no rust to speak of back here. There are some slight traces of corrosion here, but I can't see much. There are probably more dead bugs and spider webs than there are corrosion. So in this case I normally turn on computers instead of taking them apart. But in this case I will dismantle this to see if anything obvious is loose, so we don't risk damaging anything. Other than the obligatory reefer caps, of course, if it catches fire when we try to turn it on. And I also checked that this is the 220 volt power supply, so we should be good to go there. And one other thing with these Commodore computers, this mouse port here that looks like a serial port is actually not a serial mouse connection. This is an Amiga mouse compatible port. So this PC can take Amiga compatible mouse and use them in Windows with the appropriate driver. So all the hardware for this is designed into the board. And this machine also has CGA or Hercules graphics, and this is a 9-pin connector here on the back. I do found an appropriate screwdriver, and as I said, the warranty was removed, but I don't know when and why. But these Commodore screws has these special washers, these lock washers, and it seems like they are in place at least on most of the screws. And this is also not the normal kind of PC screw, because this is ordinary 4mm screws. Yes, all the original washers was in place. It's the reset button that keeps it from coming off. Okay. Yeah, and the reset button here, it didn't break loose, but it popped off. I have put it on back on. And on the inside here, it do smell a bit retro or musty, what you call it. It's a bit of corrosion back here, and there also are some bugs and spider web inside here. But I've seen much worse than this. What more can we see here? I will try to turn this like so. Yeah, you can see some of the obligatory spider nest. It's a hard drive, and this is not an IDE drive. This is probably an 8-bit XT drive. I'm not completely sure. I have to check that. But you can see that this is the PC3, and it's also in the parenthesis here PC10C. So the PC10 and PC20 was the same design, but the PC20 had the hard drive and the PC10 did not, I think. And there is a Warta battery in here, and it does look like it have corroded some, and I might want to take that out before I try to turn this on. Let's see how deep buried within here it is. Normally on these Commodore computers there is a lot of screws to unscrew to get to the different parts, and I don't think this is much different than that. But just let's take off the front cover and see how much deeper we need to go. I do think it's just 3 screws to undo the front cover. Yeah, this is the diode plugs. I will keep them plugged in, so I will just take them out of here, and I will just take them around here and take them back in. There is a whole frame here for all this hardware that's inside here, so I just unscrew the screws that fit this to the frame in the bottom, and I think it is the same in the back. And this is not to be confused with the other screws, so I put them aside here. Yeah, at least the power supply screws here need to be undone. I don't know if I dare to tell this, but many years ago, I think it was in 1994 or 1995, I took one of these computers. It was a PC10 or a PC20, I'm not sure, but it's this exact same chassis, and I converted the power supply so that it will fit on AT motherboard, and I put the 386 SX in one of these chassis to use for a second home computer back then. I would not have done the same today. And this is the very special power supply plug. You can see that it's designed by the same people who designed the Amiga 2000, because it's the same line of plugs. Yeah, and this was disconnected. I will give you a close-up of the Warta battery. There it is, and you can see the green corrosion around here, but it actually does not look so bad. This will we need to taken care of very fast, otherwise this can lead to some real damage. But first I will just brush this off. You can see here that it's starting to take hold here, and this screw here is actually rusted. There has been some small traces of corrosion here, but I don't think there is any permanent damage here. But I will need to desolder this, but I actually don't have any equipment down here to desolder this, so I will just clean this up so I'm not getting any surface contact and overrun here, and I will take my soldering gun and desolder this. There are some electrolytic caps on this board, and there also are some tantalums. The graphics adapter has a Paradise chip. In other ways it's a Faraday chipset, and there are some Moss branded chip here, so maybe they cheapened out on the Faraday chipset here. And we can see some dates here. This Paradise chip is from 1987, and this is 1988, this is 88. It's sharp memory chips, and that is 88 as well. So this machine was made in 1988 sometime. So that means that it has got some year on it back. But I do feel confident enough that if anything kills this machine, no, it's not the Varta battery on the corrosion that's around that. So I will connect here the floppy cable and the hard drive cable, and I will try to see if it's possible to turn this on. Like so, and then this, I have to have it back approximately in this cradle to get the power connector to the board to be in the right position. Sorry for the bad filming of that. I will just connect this power connector again. And I do think this is appropriate for just turning it on. I have not taken and rerouted these cables, but that should be okay. What do we need more to test this? Yes, we need a keyboard. Maybe it needs an XT kind of keyboard. Maybe it does not. Original Commodore keyboards. This is missing a key here, and it does has the XT80 switch, and somebody has been bothered with this in the past. But this keyboard is switchable, and if I switch this to the X like so, it should be an XT kind of keyboard. And to complete the setup, we do need a screw. And here we can use my Commodore 1404, I think. The 1404 should be a CGA Hercules compatible monitor. And I have not tested this recently, but it did work the last time I used it. Yeah, you can see the proper setup here, like so. I will first turn on the monitor. It's a nice green light. It has no high voltage power here yet, but that might be because it needs a signal to turn that on. I'm not sure, I don't remember on this particular monitor. The Commodore 1404 is actually made by Hyundai, so it's a Hyundai chassis behind this with little interference from Commodore. We are ready to turn this on. It has the rocker switch on the back, and we have keyboard and we have the monitor. And this time we're home. Finally, a genuine Commodore product on the bench. And it's the Commodore PC20 in the 3rd revision. We all know some of Commodore's history, but most of you probably remember them from their home computers, but they do have a standing that's much older than that. And they started out as a business company, and CBM stands for Commodore Business Machines. And they did calculators, they did typewriters and other office equipment before they branched into computers in the mid and late 70s with the PET range of computers. Our history starts in 1984 when the first PC5 was launched, and this was quickly followed up by the PC10. And those computers were developed by the German division of Commodore that always was more business oriented than the US. And the first models was full 80 size cabinets, and the 10 and 20 models has almost always been the same computer, but the 20 had a built-in hard drive. And the 10 and 20 models was PC-XT compatibles with 8088 CPUs. And the same can be said about the 30-40 range, which also was the same computers, although 80 compatibles. And the PC XX naming continued until Commodore stopped all internal development and started using off-the-shelf parts and just became a run-of-the-mill clone producer with all standard components. And this is some hype when the PC first was launched in the US, and that happened quite later than in the European market, so they waited until 1987 until they launched their products in the US. And this is quite the lovely picture of an old PC-10. And also in other places of the world, Commodore presented their lines of computers as an integrated line with all kinds of computers. So this lineup presents everything from the C64, 128, all the PCs to the Amiga range of computers. So this was really the glory days of Commodore, when they had good presence in all parts of the market. And this is a sales pitch from 1989, and what you have pictured down here is a PC20 III computer with a color monitor. And the machine is based on an 8088 CPU that in the 3rd edition now has quite the turbo mode as it works on 9.54 MHz. This was shipped with DOS 3.2 and 3.3. It was just the breaking points between these versions. And it had one 360K floppy and a 20 megabyte hard drive. And it had CGA Hercules RGBE output, and this was also present via a composite header on the back, and it's jumper configurable if this should be CGA or Hercules. And I have discovered that this probably uses an 80 keyboard, as I had to put the switch in 80 mode for the keyboard to function. And the machine was launched in 1987, but I do not find any information that, so this machine was probably not on sale until 1988. You have a slow computer. They have this nicely done turbo computer, and the computer always starts at 4.77 MHz when first powered on. And the machine does not have a turbo button, so to set the CPU frequency you use keyboard shortcuts. And there also was available a speed exec program that you could put into the autoexec.bat file with parameters to run the computers in turbo from the start. But the boot up sequences until it hit the autoexec.bat was always done in non-turbo mode. And the storage in this one is XTA drive, not an IDE. So this was a pre-processor to the IDE standard, where you had just an 8-bit interface to the drive. And this is not compatible with the IDE, even though the connectors look the same. I have successfully used XT IDE adapters in 8-bit ISA slot with CF cards on these computers, and it just works fine if the internal drive is dead. And the full service manual of this machine is available online. The manual is quite good. It does not provide much in the way of fault finding, but it does have complete schematics and all the descriptions you really need. But the manual is dedicated to the PC20 III, and if you don't know that these machines are the same, it can be a bit difficult to find the manual. And I have found that simmers.net is the gold standard for all technical info on CBM stuff, and is just not on the PC line of computers. So I do recommend visiting his page for everything Commodore related technical stuff. The machine has a mouse port, and this is the perfect mouse strap. The 9-pin connector is marked mouse, and the plug does fit nicely from a standard 9-pin serial mouse, but this is a port that is meant to be used with the Amiga 1352 line of mouse. And internally this is translated into a standard bus mouse protocol, so any mouse driver that uses that kind of bus should work. Among others, the original Microsoft bus mouse driver. It does turn on. It has light in the power. I can hear the disk, but I hear no disk initializing. I have light in all the LEDs in the keyboard. Not a good sign. But this machine can be designed to be using an AT kind of keyboard. So I will switch this off and I will try again. Can be that it hangs on the keyboard check. And now the keyboard is actually more normal. The light was blinking. But no posting and no other sign of life on this computer. But at least the power supply and everything else appears to be in good working order. What's keeping the machine from booting, I'm not sure. It can be the battery that puts something in an illegal logic state. It can be that the corrosion is worse than we know, and that there are some shorts on the bottom of the board. And it can of course be that this computer was bad from the start. But this is another one of my projects that I need to look further into. Yeah, I'm sorry that this did not work out. So then we have 4 defect IBMs. We have 1 defect Compaq, and we have at least 1 defunct Commodore. So even my favorite brands don't always turn out like we want them to be. And let's not forget that we also have 1 defect Toshiba, the T1000 EX version. And that concludes what I can cover in this episode. So this is another machine that we need to do a follow-up on, and that has to be somewhere after New Year. But this is a machine that I do need to finish. There is not many of these left, and not many that is as in good condition as this. So this just needs to be fixed. So that's it for this rather shorter and probably less interesting episode than I intended this to be. So thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe, make a comment, and hope to see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.